With the recent imposition of tariffs by the United States on Mexico, Canada, and China, and the subsequent retaliatory measures, that's a mouthful, it's confusing me, retaliatory measures by these countries, a new landscape is emerging in global trade, and we're joined by the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers Association to explore how local manufacturers can potentially capitalize on this shift. And we welcome Daenia Ashpole this morning. How you doing?
I'm good, Garth, but Kamisha would, beat me because I'm the president of the Jamaica Manufacturers Association.
Right, there's that.
I am an international trade specialist.
Morning and welcome.
Yeah,
but I want to start with one of my little dunce question. What does tariff mean?
Well, in simple terms, it's a tax on imported goods. So goods coming into a country from another country, it's a tax on top of those goods.
And it wasn't there before?
So what has happened, there are always tariffs. What has happened specifically, and the reason this tariff on China, the added tariff on China, is so startling is because of the de minimis. So before President Trump's announcement, you could, for smaller shipments, be below $800 persons from China could ship those packages duty-free into the United States. This time around, that is no more. There's no exemptions, as it were before. Additionally, there were low tariffs, particularly on certain goods. And now the added 10% certainly is something that will, well, frankly, affect consumers at the end of the day.
Yeah, you pretty much answered my next question with the last statement you made, because I was going to go, who feels it most? It's the end user, is it not?
It is. Eventually, the end user feels it. The idea behind tariffs, though, is that you will ramp up local production because the imported goods become more expensive. And so the idea is that persons will be more inclined to buy local.
Right.
Now, that was more so when the world was not as internationalized and products were not as internationalized as they are now. Yeah. Now we take intermediary goods to make final products. So imagine you're taking microchips from China, or you're taking steel, aluminum that goes into the making of these chips to make iPhones, for example. And these inputs become expensive. The end product, which is the iPhone, becomes more expensive.
And it also means if your country is not prepared or does not have the capacity to do these productions to replace the imported items, you're going to find yourself in a spot of bother, correct?
Yes. I mean, for persons who are proponents of tariff, they will say, well, you can find alternate goods to fill that gap. But as you said, it's not automatic and it's not immediate, those effects. And so the immediate effect is some sort of distortion, some sort of disruption. Yeah. In this case, some sort of confusion. I saw where USPS, when President Trump announced the tariffs on China, they didn't know what to do with the packages that were already en route. Yeah. Consumers were confused in terms of what does that mean for my package coming in from Shein or Temu. Right. And so, yes, that's the immediate result that you will get. You
haven't heard, and I understand all that you said, but you haven't heard anybody say, or Donald Trump say, we're going to put tariffs on Jamaica. I know things coming from other places can affect us. Explain that. How can it affect / hurt, if hurt at all, Jamaica? So
particularly for manufacturers, a lot of our end products, as I mentioned before, use intermediary goods from China. Packaging, for example. So for example, if you have a manufacturer that uses cans, President Trump has announced a blanket 25% on steel and aluminum coming in from China, coming in globally. And you're using that, a can, say, for a soft drink. That import becomes more expensive because it contains those elements. You also have the transshipment. Most of our goods do not come straight from other countries to Jamaica. Ordinarily, it will go through the United States, and so they will be subjected in some instances to tariffs that will be then passed on to our consumers and manufacturers in Jamaica.
Let's bring it home now. How concerned should local manufacturers be, particularly the ones who import various products to support their manufacturing efforts, whether they're bringing it from China or it goes through the United States before coming to Jamaica?
So the way I want to look at it, I'm a glass half full type of person. The tariffs are there. Also, we're not in a position to change what is. And so I'm looking at the opportunities for manufacturers, notwithstanding that immediately they will feel an increase, perhaps, in terms of their goods imported from the countries on which the tariffs are applied. Yes. But there's an opportunity for regional sourcing. We've been battling with increased regional integration and sourcing our things closer to home and building the Caribbean and or neighbors in the Caribbean. And so there are opportunities for sourcing our intermediary goods within the Caribbean and within Latin America.
Over what period of time? Because it can be, we need a solution, certainly short term, yes, right? In the areas that you can feel those effects, those negative effects. So what are we talking about here in terms of that increased level of collaboration and ramped up production across our region, our CARICOM region?
So we need to move quickly. That is what I would say. In the short term, we perhaps need to look at other countries on which the tariffs, perhaps even the United States, and establishing those connections there, because those products now would not be subjected. It comes down to cost, of course, because an imposition on 10% on Chinese goods doesn't mean that those goods will still not be more cost effective, because there's an idea in trade of competitive advantage. The reason you take intermediary goods from China is because it's perhaps cheaper to produce in China, so the final product is cheaper as an input into your goods. So even with the tariffs, we need to look at specific concerns of our manufacturers and what that means in terms of cost. It's not automatic that this tariff will mean that that good that you're sourcing immediately becomes more expensive because of a 10% tariff. So it's a case-by-case basis. Each manufacturer, each distributor in Jamaica would need to look at their specific case. But notwithstanding, it's a change. And with a change, there comes disruption. You may need to look at other supply sources, that sort of thing. But in the long term, and because we're not sure what will be announced next, yeah. We saw the announcement on Canada and Mexico, right, and then that was halted for a month and so. And as I speak on
Which is weird because he signed that agreement with them in 2018. But
yes,
hey.
I mean, but there's an opportunity there. America takes about 90% of its fresh fruits and vegetables from Mexico. And the top exports from Mexico to the United States are tomatoes and onions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an opportunity there for Jamaica as well.
On a local front again, are you aware of any discussions within the manufacturing, distribution sector, production, so on, to manage the way forward and to look for solutions and that kind of thing?
I'm aware, sir, on both ends, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, there are discussions there in terms of how can we put plans in place to manage this. The JMEA has also, I know there have been meetings to ensure that they're prepared for whatever comes and that the manufacturers are sufficiently, as best as possible, aware of how this impacts them and how they can alleviate the impact that it will have on them in the short term, and also make plans for the long term, because at the end of the day, that is what it's all about.
Final question from me is kind of the same thing. I mean, some people say we're a developing country, some people say third world. The bigger countries have decided, some of them, that I won't fight back. We can fight back? Is there anything we can do and say, well, no, we're not going to make him get with that? Is there anything we can do?
Well, again, I look at, we have to be strategic and look for the opportunities. An opportunity that will come is nearshoring. Americans who produce in China will want to produce, one, closer to home, so that's a double benefit. You're not subject to the tariff. Jamaica is a part of the Caribbean Basin Initiative, so we have a number of goods that we can export duty-free to the United States. And so Jamaica has an opportunity to position itself to be that hub where we can have manufacturing of certain goods that would traditionally be done in other countries. Now, this is not automatic because we have competitors. We have the DR, we have our neighbors who are also looking at these opportunities at the same time that we're looking at them. And so things like utilizing our special economic zone and those benefits that come from our special economic zones, which are subject to lower taxes and that sort of thing, and ease of trade and custom clearance than the broader economy, that's an opportunity. Investments, persons may be looking for near shore. Jamaica, we always say, is in the backyard of the United States. Okay. And so that is a benefit as well. Yeah. How do we position ourselves to be the place for investment to supply the United States market? Of course, we have to look at things like cost of energy to be able to properly capitalize on that.
We're going to talk more about that in the future.
Very well explained. Thanks for coming. You're the new president, by the way. But
right, yeah, right? I know. Oh, goodness. That was Daenia Ashpole, international trade specialist. Coming up, we'll learn a bit about the magic of Studio One Records and the hitmaker Sir Coxsone Dodd. Soon come.